Hi, and welcome to the Lost Leader podcast. I'm so excited to introduce our next guest. This is John Ball. He is an author, a speaker, and he has an incredible story that he's going to share with us today. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Alrighty, you want to just jump into it?
I will jump right into it.
All right, sweet.
So I ended up, I was an entrepreneur and a business owner for, say, 25, 30 years. And as a result, COVID pretty well shut everybody down. So during that time, I ended up writing a couple books. Now they're both connected, I can say that now. Some people were asking me at first, how come you're doing two books and they're so different? But there is a connecting twine, there's an interconnection in there when you get it. So, and one of the first ones about fraud, it's about employee-based fraud. Sometimes they call it occupational-based fraud. I call it employee-based fraud, just it's easier that way. Because there's so much fraud out there you hear. Like, you're hearing about phishing frauds, PH.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
Because those fish,
There's a lot of fraud. It's like, I swear it's this big.
Yeah, right. I caught that fish, right? Yeah, see, I've not done that, so yeah. And it's called Just Look. Happens more than you think. And so we've just sort of released them, and they're for sale on the website, which is johnball.ca.
Now. Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and one's called Just Look. It happens more than you think. So it happens more than you think was the initial title, but then I was like, I wish I just looked. That's it. So, and The Intruder is about negative self-talk.
All right. Well, let's talk about Just Look first.
Okay.
So, what happens to make you want to read this or write this story?
Well, the story sort of stems from basically in my talks. If you come to one of my talks, you see I say, your day starts like any other day. You hear a knock at the door, and one of your colleagues asks you to look at something, and that's the moment that I uncovered a fraud. We had hired somebody to run our company, help us, a friend of ours, in HR and in accounting, and basically let them do their own thing. And that was the time that we caught it, and it was almost $750,000 by the time we got to it.
Wow.
And our assumptions that we thought would happen wouldn't happen, and we're not interested. The person's, we're not interested in naming names or anything like that. But what we do is, it's about red flags and safeguards to protect people's businesses, and it's really important because once they get in, there's no way out.
Yeah.
But there's things that they can do even if they're not there. Some of my employees said that I took 17 vacations a year, and good ones.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
It just sounds like jealousy talking.
Yeah, I think that they're right. But that's why if you're not going to be present, if you're not going to, lacking oversight is one of the main things. So the company that is the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners is where I get all the data from. And it's the metrics since, I believe, 96. And it's amazing. It's not just charts. If people look at them, they'll see red flags, like not taking a holiday. Somebody doesn't take a holiday for 3 years. Recently we were in a dentist's office, and the person had not taken a holiday in 3 years, took a holiday for a week, family funeral, and she was taking every e-transfer, every 60 transfer into her own account, $305,000.
Wow. So that's a major red flag. They refuse to leave because something might be uncovered if they're gone.
That's right. And there's a listing. It's a substantial red flag listing of what they have, and it's solid. And I show them a bunch of times during the talk because they're not just charts. If you look at them and you go, not taking a holiday, or an unusually close relationship with a customer or vendor, maybe, or lack of, higher standard of living all of a sudden. Maybe they won the lottery, but I always say if it looks like a chicken and it talks like a chicken, it's a chicken, right?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you look back at your experience, were there red flags that you just kind of thought about for a minute, and then you just kind of kept going along?
I put my hand in the sand. I remember my wife saying to me one time, "Look at this," and I'm like, "Oh, it was because it was a friend. I wouldn't even have, but." If you put the right things in place, the owners aren't even involved in that. There's audits that come in. So there's a 10, I think if you look at the book or if you go online, you see there's a 10-10-80 rule. It's 10% of your employees will never steal from you. That's good. Yep. 10% are probably stealing right now. And 80%, it all depends on what opportunity they're given.
Yeah.
So that to mitigate it, we have to really focus on that 80%.
Yeah. And
fraud awareness training, tip posters, and if they know random audits are done by third parties, checking checks. I know if I was a fraudster, I'd go, maybe I won't do it at that point. So that helps, Yeah. And there's we've got a whole list of things they can put in place,
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. So living a crazy lifestyle, no vacation time, anything else?
Yeah, control issues, not willing to share duties. Suspiciousness You know, somebody.
Yeah, some people
Are you cheating on me? Oh,
yeah.
I'm cheating on you. That's what it
Yeah,
is.
when you have that feeling, it probably is because there's
Living beyond the means is the #1 red flag in every study since 2008. And this company does 2,500 businesses. The average business, say it takes about, I believe, 8 months, 10 to 8 months to uncover $8,400 US per month.
Wow.
$3.6 billion just in those 2,500 alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's happening all the time. So like chances are it's happening if you.
There's so much of it happening.
Oh,
It's
I
actually,
didn't know that.
yeah, because people don't want, it's not something they announce, you know?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Because customers lose faith and other employees, you know, but there's so much of it going on because things like precedences, and the way the law is, it's really hard to, and it costs a lot of money to not only investigate, but try a financial crime because they're very intricate and it can be confusing, especially for the judges and crown attorneys because they're not accountants, right?
Yeah, so your role right now is just to educate business owners and
That's
say,
right.
okay, here's what you want to look for. If you see these flags, call me.
Nope, well, not call me. I just want to help them. So they can call and I can give them, somebody to come in but I give them some stuff that they can implement right away, like 2 signatures on every check over 2,000.
Yeah.
All refunds, everything, including credit cards. Most importantly, a local company got hit for $600,000. An employee taking credit card refunds,
Whoa.
putting it into their own account.
Yeah.
So the banks are starting to have algorithms that if you do more than 3 a month that are unmatched, they'll flag it, but they can only do so much, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but this area is bad.
Interesting.
There's a big one just locally, $1 million.
Whoa. All right.
The person did no jail time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the precedence is like that. That's why we have to stop it before it happens. So my goal is to do a talk, find somebody out there that was like me, doing 17 vacations a year.
Yeah.
Good ones too. Excuse me. And they can go just like you can go on holiday.
Yeah.
You just have to have your locks on and ice the driveway. You have to do those things, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I always painted these glasses used to be brown and they were red. Now you can see the red flags were hitting them so much. Yeah.
All right, so you said the 2 books correlate somehow. So you have this about how to spot fraud, just look, pay attention to who you hire and their habits that are happening in the workplace.
Yeah.
The next book is The Intruder.
Yeah, so The Intruder, you're talking about just look, it happens when you think, whatever, you learn your red flags. There was a point where we didn't know why we were losing money. We couldn't figure it out. So both books say the same thing. This what I'm going to say. We couldn't figure it out. So what did we do? We look in the accounting programs. Did we call an accountant? No. What I did is studied brain science and tried to figure out where my management style was wrong.
Oh.
Things that you shouldn't do, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. But at the time, you're thinking, oh, it must be me. Why can't I be successful for 10 years and then all of a sudden we're losing money? So, and one side of it, I just didn't know. And we picked up Just Look was a book that all I learned for the 12 years I was in court, because I was in over 70 appearances. Wow. Unfortunately, I'm an expert in that. Yeah. But the other one, the book was actually started to be written. There's 38,000 words. 12 years ago, I started to write, and then I put it aside. The reason I put it aside is because we uncovered the fraud. I thought it was what somebody said to me on a golf course, because I lived in what's called businessmen's clubs my whole life.
Yeah.
And long story short, as a child, I was around all these successful people, and I never thought anything of it, never thought class, and my dad was just a chef. Somebody said we were on Profit 100 fastest growing companies. They said, John, we're so proud of you considering where you came from. And I thought, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then he said, well, you're the chef's son. You've done so well. And I never thought of that. So I said, thanks for telling me that, but thanks for waiting 30 years, because had you told me that, I might not have walked blindly into this business,
Yeah.
It's like hitting a golf ball. If you're not worried about the sand or the water, you're going to do well. So, but I thought it was me. I thought it was something I was doing wrong, so I started to study all the things that, it could have been, but what came on was this negative self-talk, and it was really, really hard. It wasn't just a negative, it was a dangerous self-talk. So I wanted to find a way of getting rid of it, which I did. And I have, it worked for me. I'm not a doctor or anything like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of it all, when the trial from the fraud was all over, it'd been 12 years and I was sitting there and the negative self-talk was still there. So at one point I said, I'm going to take all the notes I had, I owe it to everybody, and I'm going to go into a room, and either I come out of that room or the intruder does.
Yeah.
And the reason I call it the intruder is, I don't know if you've ever had negative self-talk, probably not.
Well,
Yeah, I know.
sneaks in once
You're
in a
good.
while.
But somebody who has it will understand what I mean by, if you pictured that was a person with you all day, you'd never let that person say that to you. You'd stick up for yourself.
Yeah.
You would, you'd defend yourself. In fact, you'd probably kick them out of the car. You wouldn't hang out with them.
Yes.
Instead, we bring them home, and whatever we do for 10,000 hours we practice, we get really good at.
Yeah.
And when we practice negative self-talk, that's what's going to define us, and we're going to be good at it. So the way of getting rid of it is humanization. Well, I feel for me, it got rid of it.
Yeah.
And as a result, that's when I finished these 2 books, and I wrote a record, probably 35 songs, 15 song record. The amount, because 85% of your thoughts every day are negative.
Yeah.
And the day after, 95% are the same thoughts all over
Yeah.
again. So
You're
once we get rid of them,
always-
it's like you have so much room to move,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I always say to people, I would never allow anyone to talk to me like how I talk to myself. And I say that when I hear other people being like, "Oh, I'm so down, I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa."
Yep.
If you wouldn't let your husband or your kids or
Yep.
like your friends talk to you about
Absolutely.
this, I'm sorry.
No.
Why
Yeah.
in the world are you talking to yourself like that?
And at the back of the book, we've got like things to help with that. Like I go through mindfulness, everything that I thought could help, but
Yeah.
there really is the humanization of the negative self-talk. And what I did was, as soon as I called it the intruder,
Yeah.
it took it a little bit away from me, right?
Yeah.
And we also changed the way our pronouns, we're saying, instead of saying my negative self-talk or I, mine, I, my,
Yeah.
we changed it because that's bringing it on
Yeah, it's
yourself.
becoming a
Yep.
part of us. That's
Yep.
how I feel about when people identify like their sicknesses as their like my anxiety.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, stop
Mhm.
stop naming and claiming it. Like don't
Yeah.
let it become a part of you.
Yeah, they're literary devices called possessive pronouns and determiners or whatever,
Yeah.
but they indicate possession. So
Yeah.
the first thing I do is I say, stop that, because that's one thing we have to stop. I do it. I check myself,
Yeah.
right? And I go through. There's a bunch of like I said. Here's the questionnaire just to give you an idea. So, and I only use 2 of these, and the ones I use is, what would a friend say to me about these thoughts? Like if this person was saying this to me, if I said
Yeah.
to you, what do you think? They say, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't be ridiculous, What would I say to a friend? That pretty much solves it, right?
Yeah, I was just funny that you say that. I was listening to Brene Brown, her book, something about leadership. I can't even remember, but I'm listening to it. Anyway, she was talking about self-talk, and she had this experience in an interview where something went wrong, and she kind of beat herself up for 2 days, and finally her husband was like, "It was a moment in time. Get over it already." And she was like, "Oh." And sometimes you need that friend to be like, "Whoa, that's not true. It just
Yep.
happens. Like you were tired or
Yep.
whatever."
And there's
So that's important.
catastrophizing. There's 4 different, types of self-talk, where you're internalizing, you're catastrophizing. Easy for me to say, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so I just, I'm using this just for a guide, right? Because
Yeah,
it's been so
for sure.
much. And there's agreements, and there's self-talk journal. One of them is you put in, what you're worried about, you challenge or discount it, and what actually happened. And what you'll find most, like 99.9% of the time, is all of this never came to fruition.
Yeah.
So then, what a friend of mine did, he brought me to a hospice and he sat in front of me and he goes, so now all those weeks, those people would trade you for that. They
Yeah.
put it into perspective a little bit, but it was logic. Logic does come
Prevail.
through, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that too. Even like if you recount your day, or you're listening to someone recount their day, or their like whatever mistake that happened, when they're saying it, it's like this huge deal. But then when you spit it back to them in like actual facts, like, oh, you accidentally swore in this interview.
Yeah.
That was 2 hours long. It's only going to be like 500 words. So
Yeah.
do you think it's going to get in there? Maybe.
That's
I don't
right,
like.
yeah.
It's funny to hear that.
Yeah, one of the concept I really took it from is a Buddhist concept called noting. It's but I found it works, but it's a lot like the journaling. It's reflective too, right?
Yeah.
But it's like fighting fire with a little handheld fan, right? Because you
Yeah.
need time. It's too agreeable to work with a dominant entity like negative self-talk can be, right? They say consider the deep thoughts of resentment, think about what they're coming from, come to a place, explore them without any bias or opinion. But for me, early on, about 10 or 12 years ago, I came up with basically a way to stop it in meetings.
Yeah.
It was called stop signs, right? And it's interruptive sequencing is what I call it now. But I told some of my colleagues, my mentors and people in business, and I went afterwards and told them about the book. They go, yeah, that's what we use. But that's what they use to fight it, right? It's like a dog jumping up on the table. You don't go, oh, if you trained them not to eat your food on the table.
Yeah.
But you say, no, stop. It comes from everything. When the Christians want to get rid of a demon, they don't say, can you get away? They yell at it. They get out, right? And it makes sense, right? And we have to do the same. We have to consistently do it. And because was taking a long time to train it, so it took
Yeah.
me 4 weeks and then it was gone.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's not, well, considering it's a lifetime versus, that's amazing.
But I did it constantly, and I did I got admissions and agreements that I basically have to say out loud, and I do it from a place of confidence and within a power position, because you really need to understand it's like a virus. So, and my criterion was, if what it's saying to me I wouldn't allow from somebody else, I tag it, and it's got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right? So,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I try to visualize it. Lots of different analogies, right?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to labels, I find a lot of people do have a negative view of themselves.
Yep.
And of course it has to do with upbringing, or sometimes it can be just a comment that kind of punches you in the gut and stays with you a little longer than maybe it should. What do you tell people? So you'll, like, if you're just, say you're just in a coffee line, you can't give them your book or anything, and you hear something, you see something, what would you say, like, just quickly to them? Like, here's what you, like, so the listeners today, what could they immediately start doing as soon as this podcast is over? Don't leave it yet.
Well, yeah, right? Yeah. Just, well, you mean like if they were having a moment, right?
Yeah, just a moment.
Breathe, first of all. The first thing you can do is get into a present moment. Just start thinking about your in-breath, in and out. And what it does is, people think it's just mindful breathing or it's just mindfulness, but in my book I actually go through it. There's an actual physiological effect that happens, and it lowers everything down, right?
Okay.
And if you do that, you get into the present time. That's why people do Tai Chi, because they can't think about they can't think about anything else when they gotta think about the next move, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say find something that you can, get a mantra, like I have my own mantra in here, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's got it. There's lots of them. You can go breathing in, breathing out, and just keep focusing it. And the more you do it, you get better at it. That'll get you out of that moment.
Yeah. Okay, so you think everyone should maybe take a few minutes to figure out what their mantra would be, or even their agreements? Yeah. Or do you think, are they just general agreements that everyone can
my
use?
agreements are actually ones, and people don't have to do them, but it's agreements about negative self-talk, and it goes into detail about, this is what I need to do, and this is why I need to do it. I'm placating it, I'm bending to it. But as far as the mantras go, what I'm saying is, if somebody's in a crisis situation, the psychologists and the psychiatrists use what's called dialectical behavioral therapy, and it's mindfulness. It's mindfulness-based therapies on some of the hardest cases, and it's about getting present. And the mantras and the gathas, all they are is poems, prayers, whatever it be, but you don't even need that. You can just do the dishes and just think about a name or something, as long as you can get present,
Yeah.
and just, because if you focus on only your breathing and nothing else, those thoughts will be gone, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, but a really quick one is just stop signs, saying stop, stop, stop.
Okay, as soon as you hear yourself getting into those patterns.
Yeah, you can picture it if you want, and the guys who do it are $500 million companies. These guys, and they said it works. We thought at first it was, but I pictured it in meetings. It was like, as soon as it came, I said stop, stop, stop.
Yeah.
I said it internally mostly, right?
Of course.
But sometimes you'll see me do it.
Yeah.
But it works because it's interrupting it. And everything that works, interruptive training, your dog, your child, everything, right?
Okay.
Stop. Even if you watch somebody training a dog, it's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. That's really important to know, especially because we're with us and our little thoughts all day long. Like no one talks to us as much as we talk to ourselves.
Yep.
So, okay, so 80% of our self-talk is negative, and we do 95% of the same thoughts over and over. So you replaced it with creativity.
Well, yeah. So there's a whole portion in here talking about sort of dreaming, right? Yeah. And I was always a dreamer, right? And I've actually used it. There's actually a point in there where there's a story about when I used it and basically saved the day. I got lucky in court and saved it. But it was image shifting. And Albert Einstein, if anybody knows anything about him, that's what he used to do. And I had a mentor from Argentina, and he said, if you've got something, if it's a trouble, just get yourself in a state and just think about it, and just think about it like it's in a, daydream on it. Yeah. And that's what worked for Einstein. That's what worked for Mary Shelley from Frankenstein. Yeah. Salvador Dali, Edison. Yeah. The list goes on, really. Yeah. And because Einstein said imagination is more important than knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. And,
I believe that.
Yeah, and that's it can move mountains, really.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. All right, so you have these 2 books going on. Anything else?
I just want to help. If I can help anybody, that's great. And I don't mean like they can call me, right? But we're starting to go out to do some talks now.
Yeah, good.
And I just want to if I can help 1 or 2 people not go through what I did.
Yeah.
And it's totally avoidable.
Yeah.
All of it was.
Interesting. Yeah.
Just by looking and being a grown up and looking in your accounting, being there and putting things in place so that you can get through it, and also just taking care of yourself and loving yourself a bit more, right?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, a question I always ask everyone who comes on the show is, what is on your career bucket list? So you have your path, you have these books, you're speaking. What's something you're like, okay, I definitely want to hit that. Might not be in a year or two.
I want to take 17 vacations in
Another,
one day.
you want to get back to that?
I have nothing left on my bucket list. You know what my bucket list is helping somebody that doesn't know, somebody that doesn't know that it's happening, or somebody that, like a friend came over 2 weeks ago and he was having trouble with his relationship, and I said, you want to try my technique? And he tried, he goes, it's gone for a day, and then he called me, he goes, it's back. I go, how long do you do it for? A day? I said, half a day. I go, well, it takes time. You got to train it. Just like if you're training your right hand, you're right-handed, you want right, left, you're going to have to take some time on it.
Yeah, muscle memory.
Yeah.
That's like, I was thinking about muscle memory today. Just like, it's amazing that you can drive your car and I don't have to think anymore like, oh, press a little harder on the gas or whatever, right? You're just driving. And then because it's muscle memory, when something bad happens, someone cuts you off really quickly, you can focus all your brain power on that situation, not slight turns and stuff.
There's a whole area I talk about, when you drive home, you don't remember going there.
Yeah.
About, psychocybernetic mechanism, or, the reticular activating system. They're big words. Scientists use dialectical behavior therapy, call it mindful breathing, right?
Yeah.
And the other one is just an autopilot. A reticulum comes from net, and it filters out all of your thoughts, right? And it can take you where you want. Because I remember with my employees, we used to go out and people were holding up opportunity signs, and then the negative self-talk started, and they weren't. Yeah. Because I was focused on that. I wasn't, that's what was in there. Because LeBron James, he's not thinking, I'm probably not going to get this basket in. Or, or the golfers that, are in the top of the tour, right? There's actually a book called The Golf Is Not a Game of Perfect, and it's got little to do with golf. It's got to do with mindset, because any of those guys can win 63, but how can they do it 4 days in a row?
Yeah, interesting. Well, that's like the saying, Michael Jackson, Jordan had whatever in his best season, like 300 baskets, but he missed 500 shots. And it's like, he wasn't worried about what he was missing. He was just worried about what he was doing. Like, he wasn't shooting, he was dunking, but you know what I mean?
Some of you could see them doing a mantra beforehand, they're doing it.
Yeah, and LeBron James, he does do something. I heard it, I saw it on like an Instagram video. He's like, here's his pre-game workout. He's listening to this music, he's doing this, and it's almost muscle memory. It's getting him into that, and then he plays his game. Because
anything we do good, we're going to get really good at. And if we practice being negative, we're going to become a negative person. I've been there, But also, we're told by the time we're 15, like 10,000 times, no, you can't. And we're not told, yes, you can. And I was the reverse, because I was born to older parents that shouldn't have had a baby. So I was like, do whatever you want. It actually says I could be standing above the body with a bloody knife, and my mother would say, I'll clean it up, right? But I was never told, no, you can't. Anything I said. And I just thought I walked into it fearless, which is bull in a china shop sometimes. But
it works.
Until I'm like, oh, wait a second, why are we losing money? Oh, should have just looked. See, they're connected.
There you go. Yeah, that's funny. I was with my mom, who they always told us we could do anything we want. And then a friend's mom, and so me and my friend were like, we're gonna run a 5K, and my only goal is to not stop. And my mom's like, you can do it.
Absolutely.
And then his mom's like, you're not gonna be able to do that. See? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and because they were beside each other, it wasn't like something that happened a week later. It was so eye-opening to me. And then we ended up running, and I was like, I will die before I stop. And because I'm like, I know if I stop, he'll stop, and my mom won't care if I stop, but you're gonna never hear the end of it, so we're gonna book it until we're done. And it was just like eye-opening. It's like, no wonder you have more negative self-talk than other people. It's your mom in your head. Yeah. So
it's everything in your everything, and it's probably not great, to have that. But I was always, I got trained for it. I was like, I can do that. Like, I left school at 15, only played guitar for a year. I toured professionally. I came back, started a business. And that's why he said the chef's son. But what he was being great about it, he was really proud of me. But I was like, oh, I shouldn't be able to do that? No, you could. Like, you can do anything you want. But what you think about the things in history, like the 4-minute mile. Yeah. Bannister. You think about Vasily Alexiev, 500 pounds over his head. Like, making the ceilings the floors is what I call it, right? I always said to the staff, come on, you can do this. Once you do that, then you know you can do it, right?
Yeah.
You know, they wanted to edit a book. We've never done books before. Okay, well, let's try it. You make these ceilings that you thought was unattainable. Now they're attainable, right?
Yeah. So even in my own business life, like I had in my office downstairs, I put like 5 goals for my business when I first started, and they're such small goals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like look how small I was thinking, and I blew past them like by the second year. And meanwhile, I thought these were like so unattainable. And it's funny that we put our own ceilings in place.
Never, and we do. We put, and sometimes it's upbringing. Like I remember being in a band, and I say this in the book. I say some people are programmed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they could see $1 million idea, but they're programmed. Then they're not going to go after that.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, having a band, and we'd be all ready to go on the road. And every week, this one guy would slowly go from gung ho to uncomfortable, and then he'd just quit because, you know, whether he had to go to school or he was programmed. His dad, they had a business or a certain school, and it was already predetermined for him in his head. He was already programmed through his, you know, that was what he was filtering out, right?
Yeah.
Whereas my filter was wide open. I was like, I can do whatever I want, and it made for a great life.
Yeah. It really does matter, like what you believe you can do. And I love the 4-minute smile story just because it's so realistic and it happened in real life. Like it's not like a theory. It's like boom, once someone broke it, it's like 3 other guys did it like within.
Or if you have financial goals in business, you know, when I hit that, well, I'll never hit that. Now you're hitting it. Now what, you know?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I can hit that. I never thought I could. Well, now you know you can.
Yeah.
So even if you fail, you can fail forward. You can go and do it again. Because sometimes when you think, oh, it's all gone, you can have another shot. All you got to do is you just never give up. You know, there's always an opportunity coming. You know, but you have to just believe it. You know. Yeah, and I don't mean like, you know, The Secret and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't believe in that kind of stuff either.
It's really nice, but what's forgetting is action.
Yes.
You know, it's
everyone
like
wants to manifest, but no one wants to work.
If you want God to hear you, they say you got to move your feet, right? That's one analogy, right?
Yeah.
But it's true. Like that's what they want to do, and that's what they think. But you have to have action. Yeah. You know, if you want to meet somebody, you don't sit on your couch with a track pants and a mustard stain.
Yeah.
Well, you might if you're online, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's the new cameras, right? But I'm saying that if you want business, you have to go and put yourself in the presence of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, always ask what's the opportunity here.
Yeah, and that's in the book too. There's a lot of little snippets about that. About, you know, I'm trying not to be a, you know, motivational speaker because I just want to help people and say, this is what I did. This is my story for the self-talk, and it's kind of neat because I go through everything from, you know, amino acids, neurotransmitters, SSRIs, you know, because things that would help. Dreaming, Einstein, all the way to ketamine, and even the rubber hand. Have you ever seen that?
No, what's that?
So it shows there's a rubber hand, basically it's a scientist, and they take 2 hands and rubber ones here, and they move your hand. So when you're looking at it and they start stroking it, and you feel it.
Oh.
And it could be even a different gender. And what I'm saying is, how was I successful? That's what I thought. Was it because it was all that was around me? Was I just programmed for that? And I was showing this is how it can happen, you know, there, right?
Yeah.
And also your retina, you know, it's got that blind spot because it's got no it doesn't, you can't see, right? But the reason we can see something there is it basically takes it and it puts a representation of what it thinks should be there.
Yeah.
So if the body can do that.
Yeah, our mind is really powerful.
Yeah.
That's why I think you should just like run into the motivational speaking thing because so many people don't have good parents, or their voices are so loud in their head and they just feel like they can't do anything. And the older I get, the more I'm like, you're not following your dream, you dropped out, you can't do it, and it all comes down to mind. It's rarely circumstance.
No, I don't want to do that. And what do you know, write down the things, like you have to track the intruder too. If you write down what it's saying to you and when it's happening. Is there a trigger? Like looking for that and really journaling, just like a food, right? You know?
Yeah.
Because maybe it's when you, at the end of the month when the bills come, or maybe when a certain family member shows up, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be when you're tired.
Yeah.
Because that's when it happens with me. It still tries to come.
Yeah.
But you gotta keep on it, right?
Yeah, that's good journaling. I never considered that.
Like it's more tracking.
When am I more susceptible?
There's 2 journals I have. One's what is it saying to yourself? What can you do to discount it? What actually happened? And then this one is, okay, what is the, you know, what's the variables, right? What's happening? What time of year is it? What time of month is it? Who's here? You know? Is it in the mornings? Is it weekends? Is it rainy days? Then you start to know, oh, my arthritis gets bad on a rainy day. Well, I was going to say mine, I get self-talk.
Oh, yeah.
But and I call it the intruder because of that. I even have an AI tool that people can put in their words,
Yeah.
a face can come up because somebody said I can't visualize it, just like I can't visualize changing the colors in the air.
Yeah.
They need design mock-ups, you know.
Interesting. That's
So
fun.
yeah. So mine is a pretty ugly guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. I hope, and I know this can help a lot of people because mindfulness and mindset matters, and I think it is literally the key to success. And I think we can train our minds.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really important story. And then, of course, the just look is a very important story. I'm going to start looking.
You gotta look, really.
Yeah, but seriously, if those stats, like that, those are crazy stats saying basically it's happening. So just figure it out and get a handle on it.
10% of every company's revenue, 5 to 10% is being, like every company.
Yeah.
And the only ones that aren't is that one mom, like if the guy's just controlling his own, doesn't have employees, he can't have employees.
Of course, yeah. All right, thanks a lot, and thanks for tuning in, you guys. Feel free to comment below, and I'll tag John in these, so make sure you give him a follow.
Thank you very much for having me.